So I think these are all things that companies probably are struggling with and trying to figure out exactly what's the next step. But I think kind of consider it as what's my problem statement. There's definitely a way to solve that, and 5G is a great way to, think about the future.
In this episode of Embedded Insiders, Editor-in-Chief Ken Briodagh dives into the transformative role of AI in smart manufacturing and the impact of 5G connectivity on enterprise operations with Telit Cinterion's Bill Dykas, Senior Product Line Manager, and Stan Gray, Senior Vice President of IoT Broadband and High-Cat Vertical Sales. But first, Rich, Ken, and I unpack the recent OpenAI for Government initiative, a collaboration between OpenAI and the U.S. Department of Defense. Our question is this a bold step towards smarter public sector technology, or does it raise serious concerns about security and oversight? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Embedded Insiders podcast. As always, I'm Tiara Oliver, joined with Ken Briodagh, Editor-in-Chief of Embedded Computing Design, and Rich Nass, EVP and Brand Director. How are you guys?
Aside from the meltingly hot temperatures, great.
I'm right there with
Meltingly
you.
hot. How hot is it?
Oh, it's so hot. I can't tell you how my grandfather used to describe it because it's not appropriate, but it's hot.
All right, I will take your word for it. Being in a place, well, you're the only one of the three of us that's not traditionally in a hot place.
Yeah, that's intentional. We were not supposed to live in a swamp here in New England, and yet, unfortunately, we now live in a swamp.
Wow. Okay. Sorry to hear that.
Speaking of one of the ways that we are slowly becoming a swamp, today's topic is very interesting.
I don't see how you're going to relate the swamp to what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, I'm going to get there. Don't you worry, Rich, but I'm going to let Tiara land the plane first.
All right, go for it.
All right. Well, proposing another topic to you guys and getting your opinion, but people have probably heard about, or we've of course heard about OpenAI and ChatGPT. A lot of people are using that, but there's a new initiative from OpenAI, and it's OpenAI for Government. It's basically bringing AI tools like ChatGPT to the US government, letting them use various AI tools to, I think, reduce time and just help with maybe some mundane tasks, but it's a $200 million pilot project with the DoD. What do you guys think?
I mean, I don't want to
You're
put too
talking
fine.
about
Go ahead, Rich.
using ChatGPT for government work.
Not just government work, DoD, Department of Defense, specifically is the first pilot program. I cannot be more horrified about this absolutely terrible and short-sighted turn of events. I don't know if that puts too fine a point on it, but Lord, what a bad idea.
But I mean, I don't even know how it actually got to this point, and I'm not sure what point it's at. But with everything being outlawed, that we're not allowed to sell certain chips to people in China and all that other stuff, I don't see how we possibly could have gotten here.
It's wild to me. Like, even if and if you read the release, which Tara, I'm sure you're going to put a link to this AI written press release that we've all read. It looks like a bunch, at least the pilot program is going to be using tailored data sets for the chatbot. So that will have some controls, but that's just the pilot program. Beyond that, if they're getting involved in a large language model, you're right, Rich, there's no way it's secure anymore. There's just no way to, unless you're just going to believe OpenAI and trust them on their word, there's no way to know that this is secure. And I mean, that's just the practical problem. The ethical problems are insane. Not that, I'm not going to get too deep into whether or not ethics come into any of these equations, but I mean, I'm now gonna bring it back to the swamp, Rich. Your average GPU that is used for OpenAI and other such language model chatbots uses approximately the same amount of energy as your average American home. Your average data center is a small city. If the government, which is the largest employer in the country, is going to begin using and putting up more and more AI data centers to power, I would assume, these chatbots, this is going to have such a huge impact on energy expenditure, environmental and climate change. It's a nightmare. This will have a measurable impact. I mean, it's already happening in the greater DC area. They are having power fluctuations leading to the threat of rolling blackouts due only to the existence of AI data centers in the greater DC area, because they pull so much energy and in such a way that it spikes and that it's not reliable or reliably flat in its data draw, much easier to handle. Every major blackout in the last 20 years has been as a result of spiking sudden energy use. And that is the regular way that AI data centers, when learning new models, operate. So that is a huge, just recently emerging problem with increased AI data centers, leaving aside the environmental problem. So yes, I'm blaming AI in part for the fact that I live in a swamp and I'm mad about it. And I'm so disturbed by the government getting involved in this totally unregulated and poorly understood area.
Well, let me play devil's advocate with you, because
Please.
we have to have a counterpoint here. And the first thing comes to my head is this bit on Saturday Night Live. So don't call me that word. But but if it really does work, we're replacing a lot of manpower, and that was the initial goal of this regime, was to replace a lot of people with, I won't say AI, but with other means. And this is one way of doing that. So while it does drive up the cost of power, it drives down the cost of labor for all the people who it takes to do this. And I can honestly say that AI might be able to do it better than people, and with air quotes around it.
Well, we can quibble on better and what that means and all that sort of thing. And I don't disagree that it's certainly possible that it will decrease the necessary manpower. Although what that means for Department of Defense, I don't know, because so much of their manpower is not actually replaceable by AI until we have Boston Dynamics dogs on the front lines. But the whole thing for me with the AI replacing labor equation, you have to do something in terms of either social safety net or new methods of employment for those people that you're replacing, or you're just creating a poverty problem.
Why is that my problem?
Because you are also replaceable. We need to create a safety net for everyone who can be replaced by AI, if anyone can be.
No, I disagree with that. It's up to the individual to put themselves in a position where they can find another, I won't say another profession, but another job within that department.
I would say that all the coal miners who've been attempting to learn other skills in Kentucky to no avail would argue that being replaced is largely out of control of the individual worker. And it does behoove us as a society, if we're going to, and this is a positive goal, I think, attempt to replace mundane labor with automation, and dangerous labor, manufacturing, etc. It does behoove us as a society to figure out how the people that we're replacing will live. Because if not, we're creating a down the road problem that we're already bearing fruit on. There was Bureau of Labor Statistics every year releases the top employment types, job categories in each state every year, and I just saw the one from the 2024 study, and only one state, Michigan, is the top job a manufacturing job. in the United States. Almost half of them are either retail or food service. In half of states, that's the top job. So we are losing manufacturing jobs, and those individual labor jobs, and that's no secret. Everybody knows that's been going on for a variety of reasons, not just automation, but that's played a part. And those people are not often in a place to get another kind of job. And that is why unemployment numbers go up and underemployed numbers go up. And the way that we report unemployment being only those who are unemployed over the course of the reporting year, being the actual number that we see reported, not the total number of unemployed people, is deceptive. It is, if you look at the total numbers, we have had increasing percentages of and underemployed people over the course of the last 20 years. Automation only in part has a problem there. We're creating a 20 years from now problem. And this is larger than just the AI discussion, but I think that the AI portion of this, especially when you're impacting the largest employer in the country, the federal government, is something that the federal government should be thinking about.
Well, to double down on this, it's also like national labs, Air Force, NASA, the Treasury, they're all going to be brought under the OpenAI for Government program.
Yeah,
I'm for it. I'm sorry. I don't want to go down a political path, and that's not where we belong. We're technology people. However, we can't stop technology because it might take people's jobs away. Because
agreed.
We have to. The technology machine just will continue to roll, and we need to further those developments. And
I completely agree.
Fall where they may.
I completely agree with that. I think we need to explore the possibilities. I don't agree that DoD is a great place to do this.
At least not to start. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, I don't think OpenAI is the right company to do this. They're not creating tailored AI models. They're creating general language models. That's where they've had their success, such as it is.
That you're aware of.
That I'm aware of, but there were better options. If you wanted to get involved in AI in the DoD, they have the best coders in the world working for them. They could have made their own models. They could have made their own systems. They could have done this in a million different, much more.
But it's about time to market.
You don't need to be in time to market. You're in the government. Time to market is irrelevant. You do it right the first time. Our government rushing into this is, and we're not talking about politics, I'm talking about technologically, is emblematic of a very short-term thinking that I think is ill-advised.
Time will tell, my friend.
We're going to watch this carefully, folks, and I hope you are too. And please come at me. I don't know. We don't have comments, but send me your angry letters. I'd love to hear them because I think
send Ken your angry comments for sure.
Please do. Come at me on YouTube when I'm doing my news program and whatever else I do over there. Come at me in the comments. All of the engagement is good for me, and I want to hear if I'm off base here, but you got a long road to hoe to get me off of this train. I think that large language model AI is functionally a useless but interesting toy. And if we're going to actually have a useful AI application, especially for embedded computing, sensitive or mission critical operations, they're going to have to be small models. They're going to have to be tailored models. Large model is bad at what it does do and ineffective at doing anything else, as far as I can tell.
Okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Now, here's Editor-in-Chief Ken Briodagh with Telit Cinterion's Bill Dykas and Stan Gray.
Hello, friends, engineers, and developers. Welcome to another episode of Embedded Insiders, the podcast where we talk about everything and anything in the embedded space. I'm Ken Briodagh, Editor-in-Chief of Embedded Computing Design, and I'm very happy to have as my guests from Telit Cinterion, Stan Gray and Bill Dykas. Stan, Bill, welcome.
Hello.
Hey, Ken, thanks.
Really a pleasure to have you guys here. For our listeners who maybe have not heard of you guys at first blush, why don't we start with you, Stan? Tell us a little bit about what your background is and what you do at Telit.
Sure. I'm in the vertical market focused on 5G and high CAD LTE kind of category. I've been in that category for many, many years. Been in the cellular business, gosh, far too long to really admit to. But I started when I was 5, so that's good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There
And
you go. So 20
yeah,
years.
and
Well done.
20 years, yeah. So yeah, I do that on a global basis. So I work with salespeople and with customers and help them realize their solutions in the market.
Incredible. And Bill, what about you?
I've been with Telit about 10 years. I'm the IoT platform product manager, which is a set of software products that enable us to focus on industrial IoT, industrial automation, really focused on orchestrating data between the devices and the business applications.
Incredible. Well, you guys are the right men for the job, because today we're going to be talking about AI in IoT and manufacturing, and we're going to be talking about enterprise connectivity, 5G, Wi-Fi, all of the various things that we talk about in that space. But let's start with the biggest buzzword in the room, AI in manufacturing
Yeah.
and on the IoT side. Um, the it has, to my mind, simply become de rigueur that everyone in manufacturing is trying to figure out how to leverage AI tools and IoT in their manufacturing line. Telit Cinterion has been involved in that basically for its entire lifespan. um, so one of the key applications there is, of course, visual inspection, computer vision, that kind of thing. Can we talk about sort of where that is right now in terms of how it's actually getting used in the field and how engineers and developers are using it, and where you see that technology progressing? Bill, I guess we'll start with you. This is your bailiwick.
Yeah. So on my side of the house, which is really about, like I said, about focusing on orchestrating data between where it's captured and orchestrating to its delivery inside of a business application. Enterprise integration is how I call it. And
Sure.
but in the context of device orchestration, there's a set of services. It's transformation, it's rationalization of the data, but also in there is a form of analytics. And historically, it's been enterprise or event stream processing, threshold analysis. But now we're starting to move into add AI-based technology in there. And probably the first instantiation we're seeing of its use is in visual inspection, because pictures are a complex data form. Um, in our use, we're initially using it AI and visual inspection for discrete applications. So the kind of the big stuff we're hearing about, large language models and chat GPT, that is a different category of AI. It is still capturing large complex data sets and providing knowledge around them. In our case, with an AI, a visual inspection application, you're taking a picture, which is in its own form a complex data stream, right? So, we have customers looking to attaching it to robots and taking pictures all around an industrial motor in its final inspection. We have people looking at body parts for paint blemishes. Just any number of cases that you can think of for looking at a picture of something that a human might previously been looked at, but now is looking at through a static picture.
Yeah. And Stan, one of the biggest challenges with these complex data sets is the transfer of that data to and from the cloud, and obviously in industrial manufacturing spaces, sometimes there's a lot of noise, so doing that wirelessly can be challenging. What are some of the key strategies that engineers should be thinking about there? Is 5G the best fit for that kind of data transfer with the lowest latency available, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's definitely a large segment of the wireless world that is, moving ahead with smart factories, and they're doing that
Mhm.
with a variety of technologies. It's not all about cellular, but more and more 5G is entering this space because of the low latency. Something like a less than 1 millisecond,
Yep.
which is really, really key for being able to capture that data at the edge, orchestrate it at the edge, and then report it back to the cloud. And it's definitely very secure, encrypted end-to-end communication. So, more and more large and medium-sized factories are starting to deploy 5G. And one of the things that they can do is, they can work with an operator that manages that for them, and maybe provides them a network slice, which is driving cost, it's driving performance, it's driving a lot of different things, or they can choose to manage that themselves. So I think certainly I was at the Mobile World Congress trade show in February, and we met any number of companies that were looking at just that particular item, which is smart factories. We had a large display and an actual good demo running at our booth, indicating smart factory application. It was really kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to uh, ask you about the future. And there are two ways to make predictions about the future. One is to actually be psychic and just be right all the time, and the other is to make lots and lots of predictions and hope nobody remembers the ones you got wrong. So I fall into the latter camp, unfortunately,
Me too.
for my gambling. Uh,
Me too.
so so let's talk a little bit about what the future of computer vision and smart factory sort of might look like. A lot of computer vision in the factories, we were just saying, is around inspection and looking for fault detection and safety and things like that. Are we in a world where it's just going to get incrementally better in those avenues until we have sort of a negligible fault rate, or are we looking at larger, bigger steps forward that we should be looking for?
Well, I think that here's my prediction in the sense that it used to be a science project to implement AI, and it's turning into a more of a configurable experience. There are lots of well-known data structures, the ability to process data through GPUs. So the mechanics of it are pretty well known, and it's getting more straightforward to implement. And especially in the case of Telit, where it's a kind of more of a configurable experience. We have uh, a major equipment vendor trying it out in so many different ways across their factories, from that motor inspection to detecting humans in places where they shouldn't be. So
Yeah.
the prediction is that it will first be from a visual inspection perspective, be applied in more places wherever there needs to be that type of data stream. But probably from a bigger, broader perspective, I foresee the AI being applied in many different ways with not just pictures, but other multivariate um, complex data streams. What do I mean by multivariate? You got a motor, a single temperature that fails the threshold doesn't need AI, but a combination of rotational speeds, voltage fluctuations, and other vibrations and sounds
Yeah.
and temperature. Now you're combining 5 different data streams to look for predictive anomalies.
Right.
So that's in that side. And then also the idea of applying generative AI to knowledge-based elements.
Yeah.
Similar, think of small LLMs or factory-specific LLMs.
And this is my hot take that the listeners have heard many times, is, in my opinion, the only functional LLM. Really, the large LLMs, the Chat GPT style generative AI, I think is more toy than tool, and I understand that I may be in the minority there, but that'll be my hot take of the day.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you used a different term. You said functional AI or functional generative AI, and that may be the next application.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and I agree in general with what Bill said. I think that what we're going to see beyond visual inspection is there are a lot of sensors that are built into everything that we interact with today, whether it's your automobile, it's an appliance, or it's a factory machine. And I believe that there are going to be more and more useful data that is drawn out of or put into the machines, and that becomes that really becomes value to not just the machine manufacturer or the manufacturer that's running the assembly line, but
Yeah.
it just becomes really important data that needs to be orchestrated at the edge
yeah.
and uploaded to the cloud. So I believe that it's going to go far beyond visual inspection. Sure, certainly that's the earliest problem statement, but I think it really grows from there in the smart factory. And then you have interaction if you have a private network of some sort, whether it's 5G or other, then you have the ability to also run other appliances, whether it's phones or it's whatever on the factory floor.
Yeah, and I think the virtualization layer, of course, applies to both of those pieces of the equation where you can do this virtualization. That's where that sort of practical generative AI plays in, because that allows you to take all these data sets, convert it into potentially synthetic data, created data that allows you to do this predictability stuff.
Right.
Potentially, I don't think we're there yet, but it looks like we're getting closer to that
Yep.
by the day sometimes.
Yeah. Yes, by the day. Yeah.
Agreeing with what Stan said is that the idea of the 5G and the idea of the vendors of the equipment getting access, the great thing about that is it keeps the problems that the factories don't want. They don't want outside parties accessing their networks. So there is a case where a 5G could provide private access directly to the machine without being part of the company's DMZ inside their DMZ or what have you. So it ends up creating a secure remote access of a real low latency, high bandwidth for depending on the piece of equipment.
Yeah. Stan, you mentioned private 5G networks and private networks, and I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think that enterprises, companies of all sizes are concerned with connectivity more and more as IoT has become just sort of a ubiquity layer. It's years ago I was editor of a publication in the IoT space, and I used to say that the ultimate goal for IoT is to become indoor plumbing. It's everybody has it, everybody's using it, and we sort of stop thinking about it. That's when IoT has peaked, and I think we're actually probably getting close to that. Is every application is it's there, it's part of it, the sensor network, all this other thing, and so connectivity has become key infrastructure. So, as enterprises of all size are thinking about how they're doing that, how should they think about that? Because the answer is always it depends. When you say, should I be doing private 5G? Should I be doing Wi-Fi? Should I be doing LoRaWAN or whatever? Nobody's really saying that anymore, but you know what I mean. Oh God, I'm all hot takes today, apparently. But how should they think about these questions?
Yeah, I mean, so I think if you're in enterprise, you have Wi-Fi today. That exists. And, that's, I think we would all, if we change companies, would take for granted that when I walk into the office, I'm going to have some level of connectivity. So I think that exists. I think, where companies should be looking is, what do I do next, right? So what are the challenges that I face? So if for instance, you're running a mine site, and you need to have very strong, low latency. You can't have trouble spots in your network. Easy to deploy. Probably a private cellular 5G network makes a lot of sense because it's in a remote location, and the ability to do backhaul via a fiber optic network may be really impossible. So there's a great example of a cellular network that should be considered. If you're in a downtown core, maybe again it may come down to what are the trouble spots in my network? Do I have security concerns? Do I have concerns around just too many people on one particular access point? And then if you're running a factory, robotics need very low latency. So I think, in a factory setting, there's definitely a high use case for a private 5G network. But, all of these technologies can coexist. You mentioned LoRa, it can coexist with cellular. A lot of these technologies, cellular can be the backhaul or the failover technology. So I think these are all things that companies probably are struggling with and trying to figure out exactly what's the next step. But I think, if you kind of consider it, as what's my problem statement, there's definitely a way to solve that. And 5G is a great way to, think about the future.
Yeah. Bill, in that sort of smart factory environment, where are folks right now that you're seeing? Is 5G sort of becoming the implementation for upgrade? Is that what people are looking at? Are they still doing wired? I mean, what are people doing?
Well, there's still inside of a factory. There's still a ton of wiring. That's
Yeah.
But I think it's like the case of AI, where it is in those early stages of the spots where they can start testing it and rolling it. My knowledge of I don't have the knowledge of a full scale 5G factory.
Yeah.
But that being said, in other situations, like in maybe warehouses or like an Amazon supply chain warehouse, that might be a place where more prevalent because of the the kind of the spread out nature, especially with robots, especially with not assembly line, but lines where the packages and stuff are rolling down. So starting to see it, but
Yeah.
I think like AI, it's being tested for very specific applications.
I was looking at something on this last night, actually, unrelated to today. But there are trials going on in Japan for smart factories driven by M&O and some key manufacturing partners. And like Bill said earlier, it's largely driven by visual inspection and making sure things are super low latency. But there's one country where they're driving to smart factories rapidly, and that's a lot of government kind of push in that direction, along with MNOs and local MNOs and strong factory partners.
I think
Well,
that
just a second. Hey, Ken, one of the things that we leave out when we talk about 5G in the factory is the ability to reconfigure assembly lines based upon not having to do the wiring. But I don't know if you've seen inside of a factory those overhead racks, just hundreds and hundreds of cables. So the ability to reconfigure assembly lines or areas that 5G should play a key role in that type of environment.
Yeah, I think there's efficiencies that can be or will be found there that weren't envisionable before the advent of fewer wires, because you can create different flow paths for an assembly line and things like that just weren't possible before. So that it's a really good point. As we get near the end of our time, gents, our engineer listeners are always looking for that sort of takeaway, that nugget, that thing that they didn't know. And as always, when we have these discussions about implementation and execution and new technology, a lot of times the answers are the old answers. What is your problem? What is your challenge? Start there and then solve your problem. And maybe some of these new tech pieces are a good way to solve it. What is the thing that our engineer and developer listeners don't know yet that they should be thinking about? What is the thing that as they're planning their next implementation that may use AI in a manufacturing line, that may involve a choice of connectivity options? What are some of the key things that they should be considering that maybe weren't factors 10 years ago?
Bill?
What I would say is a kind of sort of a repeat of what I said earlier. it is not a science experiment anymore. The world of IoT, and in particular AI, has moved from being a research / $50 million development project to more of an integration / configuration experience, because, and that's kind of what we're doing at Telit, trying to make it easier. But now all the use cases aren't known yet, and you're not dealing with complete applications. You're not buying a manufacturing execution system. You're not buying some other type of thing as a completed application. That being said, it's completely doable to apply AI, and in particular the visual inspection space, to learn. That being said, the areas that have not, like I mentioned, motors and multivariate complex data analysis, that stuff is the science of that is not known yet. Meaning, like, what is the data streams? What's a failed motor and electric motor look like in an AI data stream? So, one hand, it's completely implementable and it's accessible. It's not a science or major development, but it becomes more of an integration and to whatever the application of your problem. So you should tell you. I guess my final statement is to encourage people to try it.
I think I would say scalability would be one. Thinking about how is it that I want to scale my network over time. So we talked about starting at visual inspection, and then how do we draw more data out of the devices the devices are connected to, out of the factory machines. And so definitely scalability would be one. The other one would be network slicing. So how does that impact my deployment? How can I leverage that so that I get can maybe lower costs but deliver rich content in a during a specific period of time working with a partner? So I think those are kind of two things to really think about.
Awesome. Stan, Bill, thank you so much for being my guest today. This is an important and probably never-ending conversation. So I appreciate you guys joining me today.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to your listeners.
Yep. Thank you, Ken, for being.
Thanks a lot. Folks out there listening, really appreciate you joining us today. If you've just been sent this, make sure you thank whoever sent it to you, and make sure you subscribe to Embedded Insiders and all of our podcasts. Check us out on YouTube, Embedded Computing Design, and visit embeddedcomputing.com for all your news every day. Thank you all for listening. I've been Ken Briodagh, Editor-in-Chief of Embedded Computing Design, and your host, and you've been marvelous. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Embedded Insiders. For more daily news, videos, and podcasts, visit our website at embeddedcomputing.com.